Hello, I hope that this video finds you well. I apologize for last week. Thank you for your patience. I was moving, and so it just was not going to happen on Sunday. Sunday was just a long day for me. But um, I want to talk about, first of all, I'm sorry. My name is Alicia Haskett. I am the creator of Boudoir for Black Women, which is now called the Coterie Noir. And I am the owner of Experience Boudoir Photography. And I'm an international boudoir photographer, diversity boudoir educator, author, speaker, and a badass boudoir photographer. I don't remember if I said that already, but I'm gonna say it again because I am a badass boudoir photographer for Black women. Now, moving forward, this week has been a week all about boundaries, okay? And boundaries and what boundaries actually are. And I see this a lot. And when I say I see this a lot, people do not understand exactly what it means to have a boundary because they feel that boundaries are for other people. And that is not how this works. That's not how boundaries work. You know what? Let me start from the back. That's not how boundaries work. And I see it so often, especially when I was talking to clients and dealing with clients, and I will tell them, like, before we do our sessions, like, what are your boundaries? So I know what they are, because a lot of times, especially when I'm dealing with a lot of Black women, sometimes there can be things that come up when we are shooting. And that means things like body autonomy and how they work with their body, how they feel their body, if I ask them to do certain things with their bodies. And so that can lead to challenges with them not feeling comfortable. And that is definitely not what I want ever. My whole thing is, you come in and I want you to feel as comfortable as possible. And I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that happens. So for me, as the photographer, I need to know your boundaries. What are the things that you are like, this is something for me, that I know that I'm not going to do because that is my boundary. So when I know that, I get in my space and say, okay, well, these are the rules of dealing with this client. A boundary is what the client is telling me is for them. The rules are the rules that I make for myself to know that, okay, this is their boundary. So I need to make sure that I am within this rule so they don't feel uncomfortable. That is something that I realize that a lot of us struggle with, is creating a boundary and then sticking to it. Because what happens is we create this boundary and then our people in our life are not used to that. And so when you say something and you're like, you know what? No, I'm not going to do that, but thank you anyway. And they're like, what's the problem? You've always done it before. I don't understand. And it's something that happens quite often because Black women have always been the nurturers of America. That's just what it is. And so when we create boundaries, and that is a full stop for us, people try to tell you that that is not right. People will try to tell you that that is not something that you should do for yourself because it impedes on how they want to interact with you, how they've been interacting with you. And what happens is sometimes they get angry, or they'll make it seem like they are the victim because you have chosen to implement something that makes you feel safe, that makes you feel heard, that makes you feel seen. But most of all, it really is that makes you feel safe. And I see it a lot with my clients, or just not even with boudoir, but when I'm doing different showcases and things like that. And I'll have people who will say, I created this boundary, but then, I wasn't sure how to really enforce it. So I didn't do what I knew I was supposed to do, but I don't know what to do. I don't know how to create a boundary and then stick to it for myself. I'm going to tell you what to do. First thing is write it down. What is your boundary? I would start with just one. Just start with just one, because if you have problems creating them and sticking to them, Do not create 3, 4, 5. Start with 1. 1 is easy. And then we stair step to get to the others. But create 1. Once you have that 1, what I like to tell my people, my clients, is to create a sentence that tells the person or yourself what the boundary is. So and what I'm talking about is in this book, which I'm going to put up here, and I give you a script. So for instance, let's say if for me, my boundary is, once I tell you something as an adult to an adult, children are different. But once I tell you something as an adult, like I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z, and you are steadily trying to tell me why what I'm saying is wrong, even though it is something that I am saying for myself that I do not want to be a part of, I automatically know that my boundary that I have for myself is being crossed by this person. So I need to limit my interaction with that person. So one of the things that I say is, when I told you X, Y, and Z, and you said X, Y, and Z, that made me feel, and then you give them what that made you feel. And then you say, so I am going to either end the phone call if I'm on the phone, I'm going to walk away if I'm in their presence, or you can just say, I'm just going to take some time for myself. And then you get out of there or you hang up. So again, you are starting this sentence with, when you, or you can say, you can start it like this. When you said X, Y, and Z, and I told you that I didn't want to do that, and then you said X, Y, and Z, that made me feel unsafe. It made me feel not heard. It made me feel whatever it makes you feel. And then you say, so for that reason, I am going to talk to you later. I am going to walk away. Whatever it is that you need to do to get yourself out of that situation, that's exactly what you do. You move out of that situation. You hang up the phone. I'm going to talk to you later. You don't have to give any emotion behind that, but you just let them know clearly, I am not with the bullshit, so I'm going to remove myself from the situation. Hard stop. Hard stop. And from that point, you will know how that person will react to you. Either 2 things. They'll either get angry or they will respect what you have said. Now, if they respect what you have said, that means that that's a conversation after where you can tell them, I've been working on myself and these are the things that I want for me. So, when you do these things, this is how it makes me feel. And be very clear, be upfront, be someone who is like, I'm just giving you this information. Now, for me, I try to take emotion out of it because sometimes people don't focus on the words that you're saying. They'll focus on the emotion instead of listening to you, especially if there's someone who cares about you, because they want to see you happy. They want to see you in a space where you feel good. And if you're upset, they will most likely focus on the emotion and not what you're saying, because they're trying to figure out what they can do to make you stop crying, what they can do to not make you angry, what they could do. So it's best to have these conversations after, when everyone has calmed down, when you can get your emotions in check and just say, these are the facts. Like, this is what I'm doing for me. And that's it. Boundaries are not for other people. They are not. They are for you. Boundaries are how you interact with yourself and how you interact with others. And they're for you, not for other people. That is something that we saw this week, that a lot of people were like, I'm creating boundaries for people. You don't. That is not how this works. So when you are creating these boundaries for yourself, as I said, write them down and then create the script. So if this happens, this is what I'm going to do. And that's how you need to keep it. And the best thing about this is you can practice. I love practicing. When I was starting out this process, I practiced this is what I'm going to say if this happens. Especially if you are dealing with someone who is a family member and you care about their feelings. It's easy to do with someone who you've just met, someone who's a stranger or something like that, who you really don't care about. But when you're dealing with your family members or friends who you've had for a long time, it's very, very easy to get back into the space where you are disregarding your boundaries because you don't want to see that person upset. You don't want to see that person angry. You don't want to see that person in their feelings or whatever. But a boundary is for you to feel safe within your space. Say it with me now. A boundary is for you to feel safe within your space. Wherever that space is, if it's in your body, if it's in your home, if it's out in the world, that is what boundaries do. Boundaries keep you safe. They are a love letter to yourself. They are the way that you show you how much you love you. Again, boundaries are the way that you show you how much you love you. That is exactly what a boundary is. It is a love letter that you are giving to yourself to say, I care enough about you to make sure that you are safe. So these are the things I'm going to put in place so we always feel safe or safe enough. Because listen, I know some things out there that happen. So write your boundaries down. For every boundary that you write down, write a script that goes with that boundary. Because people are going to try you. That's just what it is. Audacity is at an all-time high. But if you have these things written down already and you practice them, it's so much easier for you to say them when it happens. So you're not afraid. You're not in your emotions. You're immediately like, I practice this. Boom. And then you hit it, right? You practice it. You practice it. You practice it. When it happens, then you hit it. I promise you, you will feel brave after this. I promise you it'll be easier to get into your boundaries. It will be easier to tell people this is a hard stop for me. You don't even have to say this is my boundary. You just have to say this is a hard stop for me. I can't. I'm not. And it's going to be easier for you to say no to things that you don't feel safe with or things that you don't want to do. It's going to be so much easier because you're practicing how to say exactly this is what happened. This is how this makes me feel. I'm not with the shits. And that will be so much easier for you now. It will be like you've practiced for this test and then it comes and you aced it. That's exactly what it's like. So if you are a person that is struggling, you're on a struggle bus with boundaries. Again, boundaries are not for other people. They are for you. Practice. Write it down first. Practice what you're going to say. If someone crosses the boundary that you have for yourself. And I always say, when you're starting out, if you're not sure what a boundary for yourself should be, what I would do is, and again, everything I'm saying is in this journal. I would think of a time when you felt unsafe with someone in your life, right? And when you felt unsafe, but you had a boundary and they crossed it, that's what I want you to think about. So if you're kind of hesitating on, well, I don't know what I could do as a boundary, think about a time when something happened and you were like, oh, this is unsettling. I don't like this. I feel uneasy. And that was with someone who is in your inner circle, your family, someone like that. I want you to think about that. And then I want you to create a boundary around that, right? So if, as I said, for instance, I was working with somebody and they were talking about how in their family, like they are a certain age and everybody is always like, when are you going to get married? When are you going to get married? When are you going to get married? And it causes so many issues for her because it gives her anxiety. Because every time she's in the presence of her family, they're continuously asking her when she's going to get married. They're not asking her about her job. They're not asking about how she's doing. They're just asking her when she's going to get married. And we created a boundary around that. And for her boundary, we set up a way for her to say, if this is happening, so for instance, she was saying that, let's say her mom kept asking her about it. And I know, like most people, like it's very hard to give your mother directions or say no, especially depending on who they are as a person. Especially if they don't see you as a person, they just see you as a child, something that came out of them. Crotch fruit. I love that lady on TikTok, by the way. But so what we came up with is we started with her sisters first, right? Because that's easier. And so what we came up with is when they started to bring that up, she would say, I don't want to talk about this, if that's okay, but I don't want to talk about this right now. Can we talk about something else? So every time they would bring up when she's going to get married, she'd either say that or she would just change the subject. If they continuously went back to her getting married, I told her, and we worked out that she would say, I really don't want to talk about this right now. I wanted to tell you about X, Y, and Z. But if this continues to happen, I'm just going to talk to you later. And we practiced that. And I said, it's okay to say, I'm going to talk to you later. It's okay to say, I don't want to talk about this. That is the boundary that you are creating. It's okay to say that. It's okay to do that. I know it may seem scary, especially if you're saying this to a family member, especially if you're saying this to your mom, but it made her feel relief because she was like, this bothers me so much. It gives me so much anxiety. And so we started that. And she wrote it down. And she felt so much better after that because she's like, I feel like I can say this. I can take what I'm saying out of my emotions and just give them the facts. Like, this gives me anxiety. And I said, have a conversation with them about it first, about it giving you anxiety, and then you can move on. So it's so much better when you write it down, when you practice it with someone. Again, all this is in this journal. And then from there, it's so much easier for you to have the courage to say, I don't like this. It doesn't make me feel good. It makes me feel unsafe. And then you can go from there. If you have any other questions about boundaries, let me know. I love to talk about them because I am the queen of, if it don't feel right, I ain't doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm trusting myself. I'm trusting my gut. I'm not doing it. And another part of boundaries is trusting yourself. And I'll get into that in another video. But I thank y'all for being here, watching this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the comments. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out the trip that we are going on to Cartagena in 222, Lord, in 2024, June of 2024. It's going to be an amazing trip. All of these things I'm talking about with boundaries and setting yourself up, the pivot, like I talked about in my last video, and everything in between, sensuality, sexuality. We're going to be doing workshops on that in Cartagena. We have 2 amazing workshop facilitators. So if you yourself are interested in really getting to the nitty-gritty of how to become your favorite version of yourself, go below and check out all that information with the links there. You are your longest and most expensive relationship. Any money or time that you spend on yourself is never money or time wasted. I love you. I see you. I just want the best for you.